Yeah, we're gonna get started in a few. You know what time it is? Once again, it's time to get it in. All right, so just bear with us as we continue getting this information to y'all, because we're not gonna be playing, no delaying. All right. Let's get ready to get it popping here. All right. Today's info will be on, all right, on indigenous rights, nationality, and the prison industrial complex. All right, the prison industrial complex. Y'all definitely got to hear this. This is going to be like a little, I guess you're going to say, somewhat of a part two from yesterday's class. But we ain't worrying about, you know what I'm saying, say it being a part two. This is, let's say, a continuation of the science and knowledge. All right. And of course, you see what we're trying to do for those that's paying attention. We're trying to connect the dots, all right, about life, physical life, spiritual life. We're trying to get it all in. All right. So that's what we're focusing on. And so that's what we're going to be checking out, getting into. All right. So we're going to let the room fill up a little bit more here, and then we're going to get started. So all right, I don't have my queen with me tonight. At least she's not here as of yet. So I'm just gonna say peace to everyone as y'all come on. And just in case if I can't get to you as far as answering your questions, hopefully she'll be back by the time the end of this broadcast. All right, so we're gonna let the room get a little bit more filled in here. Then we'll start it popping. All right. Peace, peace. Peace, peace. All right. Okay. People still coming in. That's good. You want to get the numbers on up here. All right. And what we're going to do, for those that's just getting in, this is on indigenous rights, nationality, and the prison industrial complex. In other words, the new Jim Crow. And so as we get up in here, we're gonna get into this info. So just bear with us for a second.
Service is provided on one conference call. There is no other participant to admit points. Please announce yourself. All participants are muted and they will not unmute themselves. All participants are unmuted.
Peace, peace. All right, we're gonna get started in a minute. This class is actually gonna be on indigenous rights, nationality, and the prison industrial complex. We're doing this from 3 different venues. Well, actually 4. We're doing free conference call. We're doing YouTube. We're doing Google Hangout. And we're doing Blog Talk Radio. So we're doing all of these at the same time. So just bear with us. We're gonna get this mastered right here. All right, so we're gonna get started. All right, here we go. Let's go to the presentation. So tonight, we gotta, we put these little presentation together for y'all can, get the hang of some of this info here, and basically how, precious life is on Earth, as well as also the science of death, right? Because it is a science to it. All right, so let's get into it. All right, so we're gonna go to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted and proclaimed by the General Assembly, Resolution 217A, 3 of December 1948. Article 15, 1, everyone has the right to a nationality. 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality. Note, since the United States is a United Nations Council member, then this is right. This is treaty law. All right. All right. So once again, since the United States is a United Nations Council member, then this is treaty law. Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, and it is international. It correlates to Article 6 of the Constitution, where it states that treaties are the supreme law of the land. It also supersedes the Dred Scott case decision. All right, as well as also the 14th Amendment. Excerpts from the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the General Assembly taking notes on the recommendation of the Human Rights Council contained in its resolution in the half of 29 June 2006, by which the Council adopted the text of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, limited 7 September 2007, passed 13th September 2007. This is the same time in which that Tupac Amaru Shakur was allegedly killed. All right. 9 years later, but the same time period of September the 7th, all right, he got shot, and then allegedly on September the 13th, 6 days later, he died. All right. So I wanted to point that out. And so let's go to it. We're not going to read all of them, but we're going to read definitely some of the most important ones. All right, Article 2, indigenous people and individuals are free and equal to all other peoples and individuals and have the right to be free from any kind of discrimination in the exercise of their rights, in particular, the basis on their indigenous origin or identity. Right? This comes from the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People from the United Nations, passed by 144 countries. 144 countries, when it was passed in 2007, is not a coincidence. 144, all right, of course, correlates to 144,000. Article 4, indigenous peoples in exercising their right to self-determination has the right to autonomy and self-government in matters relating to their internal and local affairs, as well as ways and means for financing their autonomous functions. 6, every indigenous individual have the right to a nationality. See, we keep seeing the science of nationality in here. The reason why they keep putting it in here because there's people on the planet Earth that obviously has no nationality, i.e. you and I. Well, you, because you have not declared your nationality. I have declared my nationality as a Washita Moore, all right? United Washita Moore. Now, Article 9, indigenous peoples and individuals have the right to belong to an indigenous community or nation in accordance with their traditions and customs of the community or nation concerned. So don't get confused, all right, about Empire Washita Ministries, which is a 501c3. Don't get confused about an association or a society, all right? These are not nations, all right? Get that shit straight. A 501c3 is not a nation and can never be a nation. It can't even be a government, right? The highest it can become is a NGO, a non-governmental organization at the United Nations, but it can't be a nation, okay? Neither can a society, a organization ending with the word society, or a organization ending with the word association. It has association in it. These are not nations. Okay? That's just what it is. All right? So you have the right to belong to a community or nation concerned. No discrimination of any kind may arise from the exercise of such a right. Article 13, indigenous people have the right to revitalize, use, develop, and transmit to future generations their histories, languages, oral traditions, philosophies, writing systems, and literatures, and to designate and to retain their own names for the communities, places, and persons. So you have a right to your own name, right? Just like my name now is Osaru Alim El-Bey. All right. That's the name that you can retain, right? Because it's designated and retained for your own community, your own nation. Article 18, indigenous people have the right to participate in decision-making in matters which would affect their rights through representatives chosen by themselves in accordance with their own procedures, as well as to maintain and develop their own indigenous decision-making institutions. You have the right to your own courtrooms. You have the right to your own judges, real judges, de jure judges, not de facto judges, which are administrators, right? Referees. But you have the right to your own indigenous making institutions. You have the right to have your own representatives chosen, your own counsel, lawyers, not attorneys, not esquires. There's a difference. Article 24, indigenous people have the right to their traditional medicines and to maintain their health practices, including the conservation of their vital medicinal plants, animals, and minerals. Indigenous individuals have the right to access, without any discrimination, to all social and health services. Article 28, indigenous people have the right to redress by the means that can include restitution, or when this is not possible, just, fair, and equitable compensation for their lands, territories, and resources when they have traditionally owned or otherwise occupied or used, and when they have been confiscated, taken, occupied, and used or damaged without their free, prior, and informed consent. Unless otherwise freely agreed upon by the people concerned, compensation shall take the form of land, territories, and resources equal in quality, size, and legal status of monetary compensation of or other appropriate redress. Right? Listen to what is going on here. Article 31. Indigenous people have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expression, as well as the manifestations of their sciences, technologies, and cultures, including human and genetic resources, seeds, right, medicines, knowledge of the properties of flora and for fauna and flora, oral traditions, literature, design, sports and traditional games, and visual and performing arts. They also have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their intellectual property over such cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expressions. Article 33, Indigenous people have the right to determine their own identity or membership in accordance with their customs and traditions. This does not impair the right of indigenous individuals to obtain citizenship of the states in which they live. Technically, you live in your body. However, you domicile in one of the 50 union states, in which that you can gain the privilege of citizenship by way of utilizing the license in which they give to you, whether it's a driver license, marriage license, or et cetera, et cetera. Indigenous people have the right to determine the structure and select the membership of their institutions in accordance with their own procedures. Don't get R.V. Bay publications mixed up with United Washita Deduct Amanya, More Nation, or anyone else. Everyone has their own procedure. And based on Article 33 of the Constitution, or better yet, of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, this particular Constitution states otherwise. That you have the right, as Indigenous people, have the right to determine the structures and to select the membership of their institutions in accordance with their own procedures. No one else can control another person's, another group's, or another nation's procedures, or society or association's procedures. That's their procedure. The MSTA say your nationality is free, but yet you have to pay dues. And the card that they give you is a flimsy paper card. They don't give you a hard stock plastic with security feature card. That's not what you get. That shit ain't free. On R.V. Bay Publications, you can download the writs yourself with no experience except for what you might see, what Brother Taj might teach, or Brother Asir the Duke of Tears may teach, or myself may teach, or someone else, and you attempt to try to put this information together to make sense of it. You don't have a teacher, but you trying your best to put this shit together. Get up in court and your ass freeze and get fucked up. That's what oftentimes happens. Don't expect for free, all right, for Brother Taj or Sister Roz or Anna E, Sister Anna E, or any one of them to have to answer your calls. This shit was free. They don't have to answer your calls. You downloaded that shit at your own free will thinking that it was going to be the saving grace, that it was the silver lining in your damn cloud. And you didn't properly study and research and get your knowledge up. You can't blame them, because you wanted nationality for free. So don't expect for them to be there for you to answer your phone calls. Taj is not going to leave his son's or grandson's birthday party or a gathering for your shit that you got yourself into. You got yourself into that. We wasn't there when you was damn getting busted for weed or cocaine charges. We weren't there when you was getting busted for guns or etc. We wasn't there for that shit. But you want to get mad? Wow. But nigga, that's free. You wanted it for free. Nationality is free. Not without responsibility and accountability, it's not. That's the point. Article 35, indigenous people have the right to determine the responsibilities of individuals to their communities. If it's free, then guess what? You have no responsibility. You're not having no, you have no accountability to the so-called community in which that you receive these documents from. And this is no slight on anyone. This is just simply showing you that you have to think about certain things. And that this goes further than just your opinion. This goes further than just you believing that everything is going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? Because you got some free documents off the internet. And then oftentimes you don't put the documents in your court case. And that's another F up that you've done. Because that's what you're supposed to do, is put, if you want to get the documents, make sure you put them in your court case, in your proceeding, so that you have a paper trail. We told you this on Truth Must Be Expressed in the Form of an Affidavit. Go back and watch that video if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, you slipping. Article 37, indigenous people have the right to the recognition, observance, and enforcement of treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements concluded with states or their successors, and to be state honored and respect with such treaties, agreements, and other constructive arrangements. Your nationality put on the public record is a constructive arrangement in which that the state has to be bound by. Because remember, truth must be expressed in the form of an affidavit. So your nationality must be in the form of an affidavit, and it must be expressed, hence put on the public record. You can put it in the newspaper, that's fine. Run it for 2 to 3 weeks. Excellent. But I wouldn't just do that. I would put it on the public record. I would go to the clerk of superior court, circuit court, or either to the Register of Deeds office, county recorder's office, and put it on the public record. One of those two places will be the place in which that you would go and put your documents on the public record at. I can't tell you which one because various states do things differently. In North Carolina, you can put on the public record via the Superior Court or the Register of Deeds office, which is also called the County Recorder's office. In some states, the Superior Court is called Circuit Court. Article 40, Indigenous people have the right to access to and prompt decision through just and fair procedures for the resolution of conflicts and disputes with states or other parties, as well as to effective remedies for all infringements of their individual and collective rights. So you can sue individually or collectively. Such a decision shall give due consideration to the custom, traditions, rules, and legal system of the indigenous people concerned and international human rights. See, this is what happens when you state that you are indigenous. And we showed you before that indigenous means those who have historical continuity here in America prior to the invasion of their territory by the Europeans, as well as those who was brought here involuntarily to the New World, who freed themselves and wish to be reattached to the culture they've been torn. That is the definition of indigenous from the United Nations. That includes those who have a historical continuity here. Their ancestors were here, which the Empress says 85% of your ancestors was already here, as well as those who say that they were just brought on slave ships by the Europeans 400 years ago. They didn't forget you from out of the scenario of being indigenous. You were it. You're it. You don't believe it? Go and get the Executive Order 11490, October the 19th, 1969. It's called the King Alfred Plan, also during the Reagan administration, who re-signed the Rex 84 plan. Concentration camps, executive order expanded, top secret, silent weapons for quiet wars, introductory manual, operations research, technical manual, right? TM apostrophe SW, dash SW 7905.1. What does it say? It says preliminary memo, Department of Defense, DOD. This memo is being submitted in lieu of a full report from the Joint Chief of Staff. This report is now in preparation. There will be many cities with a minority. Now, you are called the minority because you are second-class citizens, and they know damn well that the 14th Amendment was now fully ratified. If it was, then you would be a citizen today, and you wouldn't have to have your voting rights done every 25 years, signed by the president. The first 25 years, it was signed by Lyndon Baines Johnson. 25 years later, by George W. Bush. Oh, excuse me, Ronald Reagan. 25 years later, George W. Bush. So every 25 years, they have to re-sign the bill, the voting bill. Now, it's a bill now. That means that somebody got to pay for that shit. But there would be many cities where the minorities will be able to put into the streets a superior number of people who are desperate and dangerous will. He will be a formidable enemy, for he is bound to the continent by heritage. How can you be bound to a country, to a continent by heritage if you wasn't originally from here? If we were immigrants, or rather, if we was all brought here on slave ships, why don't you just ship our ass back to Africa? For he is bound to the continent by heritage, and he knows that political asylum will not be available to him in other countries. Why not? I thought we came from Africa. The Africans don't want our asses? Why not? We allegedly came, all of us allegedly came from there. But I could have sworn so did a European, but he don't say that he's African European. Oh, and so did the Asians, but they don't say that they're African Asians. Only you have to say that, huh? Thanks to Jesse Jackass. The greatest concentration of the minorities is in the Deep South. the Eastern Seaboard, the Great Lake region, and the West Coast. West Side! Black's Law Dictionary. Let's go to it. Deluxe 4th edition. This is for those that don't believe that we had a nation government already here prior to the Europeans. In fact, we had what is called the Western Empire. Look at admiralty. Look that up in the Black's Law Dictionary. It says a court which has a very extensive jurisdiction of maritime causes, civil and criminal, controversies arising out of acts done upon or relating to the sea and questions of prize. Check this out now. This is why this shit is in small letters. And this is the small script. Don't miss the small script. This is why the shit is in small writing. Everything else is big, but not this shit. It is probably the successor of the consular courts, which were emphatically the courts of merchants and seagoing persons, establishing the principal maritime cities on the revival of commerce after the fall of the Western Empire. Hold up. After the fall of the Western Empire? How the hell could that be? How could that be? The Western Empire is still flourishing. I thought that's the United States Corporation. It's still going. Now everybody chant, down Babylon, down. That was the rosters say. The rosters been chanting Babylon fall for a long time. The Nation of Islam been saying that the shit is getting ready to fall. You know what I'm saying? Everybody say this shit getting ready to fall for years and years and years, as long as I've been listening. Right? This shit, damn near 40 some odd years I've been hearing that shit from everybody. But this here says that they built their shit on top of our shit, which fell after the fall of the Western Empire. So the Western Empire were the Olmecs, because they was already here, and they tell you that they are the mother and fathers of Western civilization. Hence the Western Empire. The Olmecs ruled this shit from South America, the adjoining islands, on up into Central and North America. We ruled that shit. The Western Empire was the Olmec, the She Empire, Xi, pronounced She. The She people ruled the Western Empire. You call them the Olmecas or Olmec. Look at consular courts. Courts held by the consul of one country within the territory of another under authority given by treaty for the settlement of civil cases. In such instances, they have also a criminal jurisdiction, but in this respect were subject to review by the courts of home government. The last of the United States consular court, in parentheses, was Morocco. Was abolished in 1956. Why 1956? Well, 1956, because what happened was President Dwight Eisenhower abolished the consular courts, which was supposedly the last of the courts of Morocco in the so-called United States. All right, this is what actually happened now. Now, the Western Empire of the Olmecs is the Washita. The Imperial Empire Washita de Degdemania, the Washita Nation of Moors, or an indigenous people, or the indigenous people of North America, the Washita, otherwise known as the Olmecs, has been originally associated with the Washita. Accordingly, the Washita has been the primary group of a more general population of indigenous peoples identified in history as the Amaru, or the Sagamores, i.e. the Moors. All right? The Sagamores. So you have people now running around talking about the Sagamores are different than the Moors. No, they're not. They're the same people. Stop with that dumb shit. Sagamore or Moor. The Sagamores, Moor, M-O-R-E-M-A-U-R-M-E-U-R. Same people. Stop. Dr. Ben already told you this. Go and do your research. This is the problem with all these confusing ass niggas out here on this damn YouTube teaching half-ass shit. Known to the Spanish and the French, the Washito has now come to be known as, to English as the Adena-Howellian people, identified with the Punic Iberian affinity, maintaining Aleutian Carginian heritage. As such, the Washito has been associated with the Eastern Algonquin Native Americans, having acquired the ancient Egyptian as well as Punic script and vocabulary, as they have appeared in the epigraphic records of North America. All right. This is what we call the so-called Louisiana Purchase, misnomer Louisiana Purchase. The real name is Washita proper. And it stretches all the way from Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, parts of Mississippi, on up into Dakota, South Dakota, well, North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana. All right. As you see here, parts of Ohio, even parts of Pennsylvania, parts of North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, all right, all the way up into almost the whole of Canada, what they call the Louisiana Purchase. But it was never purchased. Here's another map. This was taken from a 8th grade children's book. 8th graders know this shit better than we do. Hell, most of y'all couldn't pass the damn, are you smarter than are you smarter than a 5th grader when that shit was on? Is that shit still on? I don't know. But anyway, if you smarter than a 5th grader, shit, most people ain't past that. They don't even know the 8 parts of speech. But anyway, look at this. Look at her in the Purchase. All that pink shit there is the area. All right. So, artificial person, an entity such as a corporation created by law and given certain legal rights and duties of a human being, a real or imaginary, who for the purpose of legal reasoning is treated more or less as a human being. Also termed fiction or fictitious person, juristic person, legal person. Black's Law Dictionary 7th edition. While natural person is a human being as opposed to artificial or fictitious person, such as corporations. Corporations are fictitious. They made your name in all caps because you are a corpse, because you are civilly dead, civilis mortuus, meaning you are dead in law. You took on terms such as Negro and Black, colored, which are artificial labels, which denotes that we're dead. We're just like the straw man. The straw man, strawmius homo. All right? The straw man, strawmius homo. We showed you, you look up in Black's Law Dictionary, the word dummy is there. And dummy is a straw man. So when you see on The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy meeting on the yellow brick road, the first person she met is the straw man or the scarecrow. He didn't have a brain. He was looking for a brain. So he was a big dummy. That's my Red Fox slash AKA Sanford's son. The phrase natural person does not include corporate entities, but the phrase person without qualification may or may not include artificial persons, depending on the context. So see, this is why you have to know law, because you need to know the context. Thus, the phrase no person in the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause has been held to include natural and artificial persons. So hence the reason why we say that we're not 14th Amendment citizens, because that shit applies to artificial persons too. And you can't make a distinction, or they don't want to make a distinction. So we just simply say we're not that. But the same phrase, no person in the Fifth Amendment privileges against self-incrimination clause has been held to include only natural persons and not corporations, since the privilege is personal and may not be asserted by a Law Dictionary, 3rd edition. So we looked at stramia as homo, all right? Latin, a man of straw, one of no substance. So see, just like we talked about last night, money having no substance, because gold and silver is no longer backing the money. It's fiat. It's FRNs for the reserve notes now. It has no substance. So it's made of straw. Just like you are, with your name in all caps. You're the stramius homo. A man of the man of straw, a straw man. It's no coincidence that the warden in prison is called the straw boss. And the inmates are wards of the state. Hence, they are the straw men. Black's Dictionary, 6th edition, straw man, a friend of third party who is put up in name only to take part in the transaction. Nominal party to a transaction, one who acts as an agent for another for the purposes of taking title to real property and execute within whatever document and instruments the executing whatever documents and instruments the principal may direct. Persons who purchase property for another to conceal identity or real purchaser or to accomplish some purpose otherwise not allowed. So it's a front. So otherwise it wouldn't be allowed if you was a natural person, because they don't want to do business with a natural person. They can't do business with a natural person. This is why they had to pull you into the Wizard of Oz. They had to pull you into the land of Oz and make you a corporation, a straw man, a dummy, Negro, black, colored. That's the only way they was able to do business with you, as far as being able to abuse you. Don't believe me? Get the book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness by Michelle Alexander. The New Jim Crow, written by Michelle Alexander, a civil rights lawyer. All right. Civil rights. See, she can only do but so much. She's only a civil rights lawyer. Need to be a human rights lawyer. Alexander deals in the book primarily with the issue of the current mass levels of incarceration. The United States, with 5% of the world population, has 25% of the world's prisoners, with so-called blacks making up 51 to 65% of the United States prison population. In less than 3 decades, the United States population exploded from 300,000 to more than 2 million. Majority of the convictions increased from drug violations. Well, let me tell you a little secret. Shura versus Cullen states specifically that for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. If there's no injured party and no one has done a sworn affidavit against you or complaint, then they have no case, resulting in the world's highest incarceration rate, exceeding the rate of a number of regimes strongly criticized by the United States government as highly repressive. According to Alexander, the majority of young black men in large American cities are warehoused in prisons. Well, of course they are. They warehoused in prison because they are wards of the state. And the one who runs it is called the warden. Remember, you was given up to the United States government at birth as a ward to the state when your mother signed the birth certificate. She made you a stramius homo. Their labor is now used as globalized economics or economy, or after having criminal records and labeled as felons or permanently trapped in a second-class status. Shit, third-class status. Hell, as a whole, we are second-class citizens. They've been telling us that shit since the 60s. So even after integrations, they still say, well, nigga, you ain't gonna be nothing but second-class citizens anyway. So after all that ass whooping, getting ass whooped, getting dogs sicked on us, all the goddamn hoes sprayed on us, going to jail and beaten in the head with billy clubs by the police officers, some murdered, maimed, castrated by the KKK and others, lynched, you still only have second-class citizenship. And of course, that's if they don't change their status. About 7.6 million are under the prison correctional control. That's talking about parole. That's talking about those in prison, those in jail, those on parole, and those on probation. Get the hidden colors too, the triumph of melanin. It tells you in there, they go in, all right? They tell you about these sciences in there, about what's really going on. I'm gonna go a little bit deeper. So just hold on, God damn it. The Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, say a statute is a bond. So when they bring your ass into court and they say that you violated a statute, you broke a statute because that was formed by the General Assembly of that particular city or state, in particular of that state, they say that you have violated the bond. Because that's a statute. So statute is a bond, an obligation of record. That's what all the criminal statutes are. Bonds or obligations of record. Statutes or bonds, right? Courtroom charges are civil, not criminal. Everything involves bonds. When you are arrested, there are 2 different sets of bonds, all right? At the jail level or the state prison level, you have the bonds 24, 25, and 25A. At the federal level, federal prison level, you have SF 273, 274, and 275. These are the bid bonds, the performance bonds, and the payment bonds. These are all put out by the GSA under the comptroller of the currency under the GAO, which is the General Accounting Office. All these bonds have a penal sum attached to it. If you go into default judgment, you end up in prison wondering why this is going on or why this is happening to you. If you argue jurisdiction, oftentimes, and refuse to answer questions, even though you have the 5th Amendment to not do so, as that is against, that Amendment 5 is specifically against incrimination of yourself. You don't have to incriminate yourself, so you don't have to say anything. You can plead a 5th. That's what plead a 5th is, talking about the 5th Amendment. So you can refuse to answer the questions that the court addresses to you. Y'all be in contempt of court and in jail. Oftentimes, that's what happens. Unless you send your documentation in, certified mail return receipt, you send an countersuit for the violations of your constitutional rights, your indigenous rights, and human rights. And you'll send a notice of special appearance, which is also referred to as a notice of restricted appearance. These 2 documents must go in court prior to you going. The 273, 274, 275 bonds forms are as follows. 273 is the reinsurance agreement with the United States. 274 is the Miller Act reinsurance performance bond. And 275 is the payment bond, the Miller Act reinsurance payment bond. The U.S. District Court buys all the state court judgments. That's who buy them. There are 8 people on the board of directors of the CCA, which is Corrections Corporations of America. Look it up, www.correctioncorp.com, because they love to deal with corpse. And as long as your name is in all caps, then that's what is going on. All right? Joseph E. Russell, the top holder, and John M. Ferguson, all right? Russell owns 64,000, which is worth $1 million, all right? Just think about that. Let's think about that for a second. How powerful that is. How they own stock in the prison system, and then they stocking your ass up in there. Ferguson owns 34,000 shares, value at about 37 million. Now, of course, these are very low estimates, all right? Payne Weber, with 10,000 corporations in it, is the major stockholder of CCA, the Corrections Corporation of America in Nashville, Tennessee. Payne Weber Group is the United States of America. So when you go to court, if you're in federal court and they say, we the people, the United States of America versus Darryl Green, the plaintiff, or rather the defendant, the plaintiff is the United States of America. Really, you're going against the Payne Weber Group. And all the big international corporations are the stockholders and own all the stock in CCA. Everyone is using our exemption on the private side. In other words, they tapping and double dipping on the back of your Social Security card, which is called the prepaid levy bond number, which is attached to all those 12 Federal Reserve banks, which I get to in a second. They filed a 1096 tax return on your ass and showed that it as a prepaid account, as prepaid interest, and they returned it back to the prisoners. They took the prisoners' deductions for the exemption, and they deducted the tax, and the IRS billed the prisoners for the tax. So the corporations are stealing your exemption, which is your intellectual property. This is the reason why they have privatized the system. Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, HUD, and all international. Now these shit, now think about it, these are the names for the housing industry, the mortgage companies, as well as also your educational loans and so forth and so on, and grants and all this shit, mostly loans. But Ginnie Mae, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, HUD, shit, these are goddamn rapper names. These are rapper names. Fidelity Management and Research is the top stockholder, the top investment firm that is selling the bonds as investment sureties. They pool them together and sell them as mortgage-backed securities. They took these to the TBA, which is the Bond Market Association. The shares represented the stock, which represented the account of CCA. And all of this has been funneled through the CCA, the Corporation of America. When they are doing is selling stock in the prison system by selling the prisoners' accounts as sureties through the surety exchange. If you read John Hall's book, it talks about letterogatory indictments. When you are indicted, that's a bill. It's called a true bill. And somebody got to pay that damn bill off. And if you ain't got the money, then that means your ass got to pay it off. And brought into court under a warrant. And with that warrant is a demand for payment of debt. When they did under admiralty in the courtroom is that they are demanding payment. Now, I just showed you last night that the only real payment from Congress is coinage. It's coinage. There is no coins, gold or silver coinage backing the dollar any longer. It's simply fiat. It's an IOU. It's counterfeit. The Federal Reserve Bank can print it up at any time. 4 cents on the dollar for whether it's $1 bill, a $5 bill, $10 bill. All right. Whether it's a $50 bill, $100 bill. All that shit is on. All that shit is $4 to print up, 4 cents to print up. So that's some heavy inflations. 4 cents on $100. You sign a bond to be released until the civil complaint is prosecuted, and then they release you under the bond until civil bond is prosecuted. If you don't pay the debt, then you go in prison until the debt is paid. This is what is called sentencing. It's a sentence. Just like spelling, just like a writ. All of this shit is casting spells. It's a curse. The laws hasn't changed. The circumstances of the government has changed, so amorality can be applied instead of constitutional law. But niggas don't want to hold them to the constitutional oath, which they took their oath to. When you go to court, the bailiff, which is the sheriff, the judge, the DA or assistant DA, the lawyer, the attorneys, the esquires, the clerk, all of them motherfuckers took their oath to the Constitution, to uphold the Constitution. And you're up in there allowing them to proceed in amorality. According to the Constitution, there's 3 laws: amorality, common law, which is tied to constitutional law, and equity law. I advise you to learn all 3. Then you have jackasses in the Moral Science Temple of America, in the temples that telling you don't use the UCC, which is the Uniform Commercial Code. We know that it's fraudulent because you haven't been able to do anything since 1933 based on the House Joint Resolution 192 passed June 5th, 1933, because there's no longer coinage, which is gold and silver or ingots backed by the monies. It's no longer backing the monies. So now the New Deal was by Franklin Delano Roosevelt is paper for paper. And since we're dealing with paper for paper, you better learn the science of paper. You think 1 foot is in the water by Prophet Noble Drew Ali and 1 foot is on land for no reason at all? That was metaphysical. 1 foot is in water. The left foot is in water because the left foot symbolizes in water because it symbolizes the amorality in which that we have to leave once again to come back into constitutional law. But since the foot is in water, that means we must learn amorality or maritime law, because everything been brought into the maritime venue. So let's look at it. Warden comes from amorality, warden of the sea. The warden is the warehouse man who is warehousing all the goods. He's the bailee. The commitment order is your bailment. This is why you have to call a bonds bailman. To write a fictitious or a fraudulent bond to get you out is a worthless bond. Your contract for the commitment of the goods. Then they put the goods in the warehouse and store them there. Prisoners stored in prisons, just like people stored in the pods in the movie The Matrix. The American Legislative Exchange Committee is behind all this. Paul Warwick owns this think tank, which is called ALEX, promotes privatization of the prison system. They go to the National Congress of Commissioners, which are 72 judges, and all major corporations are feeding off the prison system, including REIT, which is the Real Estate Investment Trust, and PZN, prison trusts. All real estate companies are holding bonds, and the bonds are not redeemable or redeemed, and they haven't closed the accounts. In fact, the Lehman Brothers recently gave $6 billion to New York City, because New York City had a $3 billion deficit. The Lehman Brothers gave New York City the money to build credit facilities, not prison systems. Actually, it was prison system, but they called it credit facilities. See, this is another way that they say it. And see, the Lehman Brothers are the underwriters for the prison system. They buy up the bid bonds, the court judgments, and this is how they hypothecate the bonds, because they're the underwriters. Banks make derivatives out of your promissory notes and sell them as mortgages and credit cards, etc. These prison bonds are being monetized. They make an investment security out of it. They make a fortune off the prisoners. These bonds go international, into SINs, and then into ANA, which is the Annual Numbering Association in Brussels, Belgium, with unlimited capital. This is where euro, yen, sterling, and everything is under the prison system. All countries are feeding off of it. Well, how I got through the ability in order to do this? How can they do this? Well, the United States 13th Amendment, which supposedly freed your ass, Section 1 states that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crimes wherefore the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any other subject to their jurisdiction. Right? Now, this is amazing too, because what we found out is that everybody want to be a Republican all of a sudden. You know, they like Trump. But amazingly, 80% of the prisons are in Republican areas. But yet, y'all get on Bill Clinton with the 3 strikes and you out laws that he did. Well, you ain't got to participate in none of them because they don't have jurisdiction to begin with, because you're not a goddamn 13th, 14th, or 15th Amendment citizen. There, every man is independent of all laws except those prescribed by nature. He is not bound by any institution formed by his fellow men without his consent. This is Cruden versus Neal, North Carolina, 338, 1796. And that's the truth of the matter. If any tribunal, court finds absent of proof of jurisdiction over a person in subject matter, the case must be dismissed. You are not a 14th Amendment citizen because the 14th Amendment was never fully ratified. The Dred Scott case states specifically that Negroes and those of African descent are not citizens of the United States, nor will they ever be. And since they grouped all of us into that category, then you can utilize it as a way of jurisdiction. My wife and I have used it before. It was 2 DAs, assistant DAs, and they swore they was going to try to intimidate us. That kangaroo court shit. And so my wife had to tell them, look, we don't fall under your rules. In fact, we're not even citizens of the United States. I said, you never heard of the Dred? She said, you never heard of the Dred Scott case decision? And they jumped back like Mike Tyson hit them. When we got back in court, they was like, oh, Your Honor, they've been here several times. You're going to go in and dismiss this case. And we looked at them like, yeah, you better, before we let the goddamn cat out the bag. Shore versus Cullins, 481 F.2D 946. For a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. That's Shore versus Cullins. There can be no sanction or penalty imposed on anyone because of this exercise of a constitutional right. Corpus delicti means body of crime, is a term from Western jurisprudence, which refers to the principle that it must be proven that a crime has occurred before a person can be convicted of committing the crime. For example, a person cannot be tried for larceny unless it can be proven that the property has been stolen. Likewise, in order for a person to be tried for arson, it must be proven that a criminal act resulted in the burning of a property. Because, once again, for a crime to exist, there must be an injured party. There must be damaged property for a crime to exist. You taking drugs or you having weed on you is not a goddamn crime. This is why they had to legalize it. See, this is politics. States need extra money, so now they legalizing that shit. But taking the seeds out and making that GMO Monsanto shit. Black's Law Dictionary, 6th edition, defines corpus delicti, the fact of a crime having been actually committed, where there is no violation of an established right, there can be no wrong. You cannot have a trial without an injured party. God damn it, listen to me. You cannot, as a matter of due process of law, even be called or summoned into a court or tribunal without having an injured party. Where the fuck is the goddamn contract in the complaint or the sworn affidavit against me? The injured party is the accuser, and he or she must squarely and surely identify you as the accused. The accused, you, have either committed an injury to a body, which is corpus delicti, or injured property, or have breached a contract. Show me the contract. Just like Cuba Gooding Jr. was saying, show me the money. No, show me the goddamn contract. Show it to me. Show me the original contract. Your Honor, I don't have a contract with you, nor with the DA. If so, then the accuser injured party must be present and the contract must also be placed as evidence for review. The accuser injured party must put the judicial machinery into action by first writing a sworn affidavit that states the injuries that were committed. Then the summons comes and it must be signed by an Article 3 judge, which states that the matter has been duly investigated and probable cause for such summons and or warrant is justified. The sworn affidavit must be, see, Amendment number 4. These are all matters of due process of law, and if one of these elements are missing and or corrupted in any way, the entire matter must be dismissed. You better pay attention to what I'm talking about. It may save your ass. Even so, the courts cannot adjudicate the UCC, the Uniform Commercial Code. All right? At Title 15, United States Codes, Section 1127, the definition includes commercial name, trade name, juristic name, etc. Your straw man is a legal person subject to legislative what? Statutes. Your straw man is subject to legal legislative statutes, not your natural person. The straw man is a trust trade name, a DBA, doing business as in the commercial world. It's your front. That's what your straw man is. Remember, we showed you the straw man. It's a front. Straw me is homo. It's a front. It came into existence with your birth certificate, which was bonded and gave the trust value at $650,000. This estimated is based on the weight of a person, approximately 5 pounds, because you were worth your weight in gold. And according to the Internal Revenue Code, or the IRC, or put it this way, the old saying is that you're worth your weight in gold isn't just an old saying, it stands true. Let me explain. Let's say that you weigh 10 pounds, you're a big ass baby. You came back like Bobby said with that goddamn baby brain. And at birth, gold currently is about $1,000. Of course, it's more than that, but it's about $1,000. So an ounce, let's say an ounce, or yellow brick road, there's 16 ounces in a pound. Hence, 1,000 times 16 ounces equals 16,000. And then 16,000 times 10 pounds is 160,000. And then the bank, i.e. the depository trust company, a depository or DTC, receives the bond, birth certificate in red, which actually is your live claim birth form. All right, the one with your little tiny itty bitty footprints on it is the bond number and the certificate file number. And what they do, they mark it up 10 times the value. It's called fractionalized banking to now become approximately $1.6 million. But that's the estimate of the weight of a person, approximately 10 pounds. The value of the birth certificate is unlimited. Howbeit, it is good to put a value on it, such as about $100 billion USD or silver dollars, 99.9% pure. We can make it more if you want, $100 trillion. Are you worth? How much are you worth? All right. When the mother informant gave or gives the title birth certificate to the state, and the baby then becomes the property and the slave of the state. This title birth certificates are turned into corporations at the Puerto Rico Department of States Corporations, P.O. Box 3271, San Juan, Puerto Rico 00904-3271. Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. A birth certificate is a negotiable instrument. I'm gonna say that again. A birth certificate is a negotiable instrument. It's a bond. So you can use that bond in a court case. Since they claim that you violated a bond, which is a statute, then you can use your birth certificate as a bond to pay it off via the back of your Social Security card, which is one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks, A through L. A registered security, a stock certificate evidenting and representing the preferred stock of the corporation against which you are the surety. All right, this is why you also have to learn about standard form 28, which is affidavit of individual surety. It is a pedigree chattel document establishing the existence of our straw man, a distinct artificial person with a fictitious name. It is a document of title to a straw man. It is the warehouse receipt for your body, delivery receipt, industrial bond between you, the flesh and blood man or woman, and the industrial society and corporate United States artificial person. Birth, the act of being born or wholly brought into separate existence. What the hell is this separate existence? Well, it's talking about when the child is separate from the woman by a cutting of the umbilical cord. A man or woman is born straw men as wholly brought into separate existence. Because the first thing they ask you, all right, when you get into the hospital, have you chosen a name for the child? Because it's time to go make up the birth certificate or the live claim birth record, i.e. the birth certificate, which they end up giving you. The live claim birth goes on the public record via the New York Stock Exchange via the DTC, Depository Trust Company, in which that corporations purchase you. So you may be worth $300 million. Right now, you have to go to fidelity.com in order to find out. Each event qualifies as a birth. The birth certificate document a muddied mixture of two events that allows the system to both claim that it is you or your birth certificate, yet also claim to hold title to, not ownership of, the corporately colored straw man. This is why you do a title of ownership for the birth certificate when you authenticate the birth certificate. Or as we say, authenticate the live claim birth record. Right? That's the one in which that you want from the state, not the one in which that you get back from the county. Birth certificates are a form of securities called warehouse receipts. This item includes a warehouse receipt as decried as at A section 7202 of the Uniform Commercial Code. The law which governs commercial paper and transactions which parallel a birth certificate or birth certificate now appears to be less qualified as warehouse receipts under the Uniform Commercial Code. And this is why you put the birth certificate state file number and the bond number onto the UCC. And then you have it filed as a non-UCC in the county as you have placed a lien upon it. This is before you even authenticate your birth certificate and do a affidavit of ownership on it. This is how you this is how you learn how to get back into your office or your seat of the executor's office, the estate. This is how you do that. Black's Law Dictionary, 7th edition, defines warehouse receipts. A warehouse receipt, which is considered a document of title, may be a negotiable instrument. Oh, that's what I just told you. So your birth certificate can be a negotiable instrument and is often used for financing and inventory as security. This cycle is based on the future tax revenue of the legal person whose name appears on the birth certificate. This also means that the bankrupt corporate United States can guarantee that the purchaser of this securities, the lifetime labor and tax revenue of every citizen of the United States, America, with a birth certificate as collateral for payment. This device is initiated simply by converting the lawful true name of the child into a legal juristic name of a person. In other words, transforming from upper and lowercase to all uppercase. Legally, you are considered to be a slave and indentured servant to the various federal, a ward to the state, and local government via the state issued and state created birth certificate in the name of your all caps person. Birth certificates are issued so that the issuer can claim exclusive. All right. That's what they can claim exclusive. All right. Person. Right. Created thereby. This is what is going on. Right. So the original birth and then for those who claim to be a citizen, naturalized record for every United States citizen is on file in the official record in Washington, D.C. You can go get a copy. And the property and assets of every living United States citizen is pledged as collateral for the national debt. Within 2 weeks and 3 days, each certificate of birth is to be filed in Washington, D.C. Evidence reveals that there is even a federal children department established by the Shepard-Townsend Act of 1922 under the Department of Commerce. Every citizen is given a number, the red number on the birth certificate, which is the bond number, and each live person or birth, is valued at $650,000, right? In other words, fiat notes. That's what it is, all right? Collateral from the feds. So this Federal Reserve dollars, this 650,000 Federal Reserve dollars in collateral from the feds. And remember, the feds can just make this shit up anytime. Why? Because you're worth your weight in gold. You're worth, money in terms of your energy. All right. So when a child is born, the hospital generally sends the original, not a copy, of the record of live birth to the State Bureau of Vital Statistics, sometimes called the Department of Health and Rehabilitative Service, HRS. Each state is required to supply the corporate United States with birth, death, and of live birth, keeps it, and then issues another birth certificate. Creates an official person, corporation, or legal person, as opposed to a certificate now at the United Executive, the United States censor every and do a house. Just all dates. That bond is then made available to purchase on the security exchange, and it's Reserve Bank. Those reserve notes. This is why before, so where the issue from? So that is based on the simply put on the Fed's interest in the bond from the Department of Commerce, which invests the sale proceeds in the stock or bond market, while the original one is located at the DT Trust Company. They were in the world dollars on average, according to the IRS on the Revenue Code. The bond is then held in trust for the Federal Reserve Depository Trust Corporation at Street in New York City, about 2 blocks down the street from the Federal Reserve in New York. The birth certificate issued by the state is then registered with the United States Department of Commerce, the executor's office, specifically through its own subsidiaries, as we just spoke about. So here, the original Social Security card was designed by Ed Happel of Albany, New York in 1936. All right? This is why this was the Tin Man, was the second person that was met on the yellow brick road by Dorothy. The first was the Straw Man, the big dummy, who had no brain, symbolized the birth certificate. The second was the Tin Man, taxpayer identification, TIN, Tin Man, you get it? Taxpayer identification is the Social Security card. This creation of the Social Security account is known as the SETI-Q Trust. The birth certificate is the SETI, or SETU trust, which refers to a beneficiary having an equitable interest in us, with the legal title being vested to the trustee. Green versus Underhill. Look that case up. The IRS is the accounting and collection division of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the bankers, the Federal Reserve Bank, who the companies owe money to. In fact, this number on the back of Social Security card, as you see here, this is E, which symbolizes Richmond, Virginia. All right? That's the Richmond, Virginia Federal Reserve Bank. That's what E. Right? So they are the ones who enforce and oversee the bankruptcy of the company, this corporation, the United States corporation. They are really not your enemy. They are only doing their job they was hired to do. And this is to keep track of the bankruptcy of the company. It is imperative that we learn how to use them to our advantage, as they can be a tremendous resource for us. Your exemption is a bridge between the private side and the public side. The back of your Social Security card is the private side. The front of your Social Security card is the public side. The International Monetary Fund, or IMF, which is the back of your Social Security card, which is called the International Monetary Fund number. That's what this is called. It comes through the Federal Reserve Bank, but it's called the IMF, or the International Monetary Fund number. It is also referred to as the prepaid levy bond number. Prepaid levy bond number. The International Monetary Fund took the application and pledged your future labor, your energy, as a guarantee for payment to the bankers. They say that you will live approximately 65 years. So we get at least 65 good years at your ass. The bankers gave the companies a credit for your application against the amount that the company owes the bankers, which at the time of birth, it was worth $650,000. And this transaction is what is referred to as a money of account transaction, as no real money changed hands. It was simply an account entry against the debt owed to the bankers by the company. The Virginia company, that is, which is the United States. The United States started as the Virginia company. All right, under the doctrine of parens paria, which means government is parent. The word government itself means mind control. Govern comes from the word governor, which means control, and ment is short for mental, which means mind. So the word government itself means mind control. As a result of the manipulated bankruptcy of the United States of America in 1930. All the assets of the American people, their person, and other countries itself are held by the Depository Trust Company at 55 Water Street, New York, New York. Security by the what? UCC commercial liens, which are then monetized as debt money by the Federal Reserve. It may interest you to know that under the umbrella of the Depository Trust Company lies the CEDE, which is Corporation, the Federal Reserve Corporation, the American Bar Association, the legal arm of the banking interest, and the Internal Revenue System or Service, which is the System Collection Agency. The Federal Reserve banks in the state of America shown below. First district is A. So if you have A in the front of the letters on the back of your name, on your social security card here, as you see, E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right? So you have the letter in front and 8 numerals behind it. But if you have A, that means your ass belongs to the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Second district, B. If you have B, you belong to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Third district, C. Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. Fourth district, D. Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. Fifth district, E. Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, Virginia. Sixth district, F. Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, Georgia. Hot Atlanta. Seventh district, G. Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Chi-Town. Eighth district, H. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Ninth district, I. Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. Purple Rain. 10th district, J. Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. 11th district, K. Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, Texas. 12th district, L. Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. Note, the Treasury is also a bank. At Title 31, United States Section 331, it spells out that the Secretary of State, or Secretary, of Treasury is the CFO of the Treasury Bank. Who is the current Secretary of Treasury? We'll get to that in a second. My birth certificate is already a traded instrument or surety or security or surety, which of course the birth certificate is actually talking about the live claim birth record, is already traded as surety that they are holding. So you're telling the Treasury this, I am going to use a part of the funds that you have stolen from me my whole life, and this $100 trillion bond is the amount that I will deposit into my account to rectify the theft. Why? Because you're worth your weight in gold, and plus the birth certificate, there is no set rate. Okay? And all of this is talking about, once you do your UCC1's financing statement, you do your copyright, trademark, trade name, you do your other documents, which I'll get to in a second. I won't get ahead of myself, but Jacob Lew is the United States Secretary of Treasury right now, right? He is the United States government administrator and attorney, who is the 76th and current United States Secretary of Treasury, serving since 2013. He served as the 25th White House Chief of Staff from 2012 to, so let's see what is from 2012 to 2013. All right, there we go. That's what I thought it was. So here, parties. Let's look at it. Neil Keenan, lien claimant as settler for global accounts, CEO, or in care of notary acceptor. All right. Eric S. Rosengren, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. See, these are the individuals who were behind each of these banks that we're talking about. William Dudley, lien debtor, doing business as CFO of Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Right? Charles Plesser, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. Sandra Pianolto, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland. Jeffrey M. Lacker, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond. Dennis P. Lockhart, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, you can see the phone, you see the addresses and the phone numbers. If you don't believe me, real simple, call. All right, some of these might have changed because you see how many people is leaving since the this administration. I ain't seen this many people leave or get fired in the goddamn administration since the damn Reagan administration. All right, hell, I think Trump got him beat. But anyway, Charles L. Evans, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. John B. Bullard, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Narayana Lakota, lien debtor, doing business as CFO Bank of Minneapolis. Esther George, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of lien of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. All right. Bridget W. Fisher, lien debtor, doing business as CEO of Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. And John C. Williams, lien debtor, doing business CEO, Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. All right, so what do you need? Well, the Uniform Commercial Code, what does it do? It protects your property and your assets. Your assets. Right? You had to have a UCC1 financing statement. Many of y'all think that's all you had to do was fill out a UCC1 financing statement and you didn't put no contracts behind it to solidify it. That's because you ain't had no teachers. You don't know what the fuck you was doing. You need a UCC affidavit attachment affidavit, all right? You need a negative avertment. You need an affidavit for grants and power of attorney and firing all trustees that you have not appointed a Form 56 in a fiduciary appointment letter. A security agreement, a private agreement, whole harmless indemnity clause, or agreement collateral listing, affidavit bond for discharge debt, all right, Form 56, and a fiduciary relationship with fiduciary appointment letter. You want one for the Secretary of Treasury. You want one for the United States Attorney General, all right? You want one for the Commissioner of the IRS. These names have changed. Do your research and get the names, but you need a non-negotiable chargeback. You need a non-negotiable bill of exchange. You need a private bond set off. You need a fidelity bond. You need accepted for value, front and back of your Social Security card and birth certificate. You can now use for the Social Security card a copy and do accepted for value front and back and keep the original. But for the birth certificate, you must have the original or at least a copy in which that you received from the county or the state. Optional Form 90, release on lien on real property. Optional Form 91, release on real personal property from escrow, which is jail. So you can use these same forms to get people out of jail. Standard Form 28, affidavit of individual surety. Copyright, trademark, trade name. These are the forms that you need to solidify your position as far as having a UCC1 financing statement. Contact the Register of Deeds and or the Secretary of State, Department of Commerce for filing a UCC1 financing statement and listing the property as collateral on the statement. The same can be done with the birth certificate, which is your property, all right? Technically, because you can do a title of ownership and then do basically, you can do what is known as authentication, birth certificate authentication, which is actually with the live claim birth form. So you can call the Secretary of State, get a copy, of your live plain birth form. All right. You can have them to authenticate it and then also send it to the United States at the federal level and have it done at the Secretary of State and have it authenticated there. You can take a copy of the one that you have at the county and have it authenticated by the clerk there. Now you have done all three. You and only you can file this notice of lien. You and only you can determine the value of the property. The value of your UCC1 shall be unlimited. Like we said, $100 trillion or $100 billion, however you want to do it. But the non-negotiable accepted for value, approved for payment, accepted for value, this presentment and all related endorsements front and back in accordance with Uniform Commercial Code 3-419 and the House Joint Resolution 192 of June 5th, 1933. Please release all proceedings, products, accounts, and fixtures and the orders of the courts to me immediately. Exempt from levy, deposit to the United States Treasury, and charge the same to your full name, your social security number with the dashes. You can also do it without the dashes, which is your employment. As well as also you can do the back of the social security card, but then you can, of course, you can sign it as the authorized representative dated, and then the employee's identification number is the one without the dashes. You can accept it for value, return it for value. There's no money to pay anything. The contracts are already in place. We are simply accepting the credit that has been established and authorize them to set off the debt with the said credits. Written in proper bank speak, it is possible to set off unsecured debt items to the IRS and authorize the Secretary of Treasury to issue money orders to pay off those debts using your public side straw man social security number. On the back side of the social security number, all right, or social security card, there is a alphanumeric account number in your straw man. That is your private account that can be drawn from. All right, by doing so, you actually help the national debt. So whenever your debt is actually prepaid, remember I told you it's called the prepaid levy bond number. That's right, your debt is prepaid with what is known as money of account. There is no real substance of money of exchange, such as gold or silver, only accounting adjustments and set-offs. The United States government agreed to do this for you with the passage of the House Joint Resolution 192 back in 1933, shortly after the national emergency and the bank holiday declaration declared by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The SS5 is really a power of attorney, POA, for the company that issues the insurance benefit to you. The real man or woman, the POA, was assumed by the company, the government, the corporation. When they established a new account, they styled the name in all caps. Very few people normally sign their names in all caps. In fact, it's not proper grammar. So your John H. Doe is really a corporation. Print your name in all caps if you intend to express the name title of your corporation. You will find it is on your driver's license, your social security card, your bank statements, your check blanks, your tax statements, etc. Social security card is evidence that there is an insurance policy. You're letting them know you use your money for crimes against humanity. Or better yet, use your back of your double dipping, as they do. They double, triple dip, whatever. They do some dipping, but use it because everything is commercial. All crimes are commercial. All crimes, kidnapping, robbery, extortion, murder, is commercial. You don't close the account, you go to prison. Bonds get sold domestically and internationally. The bonds are sold on the New York Stock Exchange. The CCA, which is Correction Corp of America, sell their stocks and shares on the New York Stock Exchange. John D. Russell, who owns the 64 million shares, as we told you about, all right, and John Ferguson, all right, and then you have, they're also the CCA Board of Directors. The Dillard Corporation Correction Corps is owned by David Dillon and merged with Trinity Virtue Investment when they became SB Warburg. Now, if you don't know, that part of the Warburg family located in Chicago, Illinois, they all hooked up into the BIF Bank, right? They also were the family that helped start and funded the Federal Reserve Bank, as we went over last night. They were hooked up in the BIF Bank, the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, one of the largest banks in the world. This is why people do not win in court. All right, trials and pre-sentences are just dog and pony shows. $100 checks is used by 20 to 30 corporations internationally. This is why we are not getting back our council checks. The reason is that we sold, they were sold as promissory notes. The bank makes derivatives off of them and sell them internationally. Back in the days, I remember back in the 80s and 70s, people was getting their checks back, all right? The council checks, but you don't get them back no more. Therefore, I am loaning money to the bank. The bank reloans it to other people. The QSIP number is a 9-digit number. Internationally, it is up to 12 digits, representing trillions of dollars, right? Trillions of dollars. So this is what we're talking about here, all right? This is the real science, right? And you need to know this, all right? So hopefully it comes on here in a second. All right, so I'm basically ending with that right there. You know, I think we went into enough information, enough science, you know, so, you know, just keep coming back. Keep coming back. Don't play. You know what I'm saying? You know, this for those who really want to know the truth. You know, that's what we're doing here. You know, very few people, I'm sure, have told you this information that I dropped. All right, so, you know, just respect it. You know, give credit where credit is due. You know what I'm saying? Point people to subscribe to this channel if you want to hear the truth. If you want to see the real information. All right? No more playing games. You want the realness, then you come and get it. All right? It's going to be right here on Dr. Alim's TV. All right? Dr. Alim El-Bey's TV. All right? We're going to get it in. All right? We love y'all. And we out. And for those who super chatted, yo, we love y'all. We really appreciate the funds. All right? We definitely need them. Because we all building, all right? This ain't no bullshit. We actually build, all right? And anybody who knows us know that every time they come and see us, we got something new. We doing something. We getting something in which that people can come to. Like, for example, these events that we put together annually, all right? Before we had 6 acres, now we have another 30 acres and another 50 acres on the other side. All right, so it's still growing. All right, and it's under the temple's name and it's tax exempt. All right, so we really are doing what needs to be done here. All right, we ain't just talking it, we walking this. All right, so we just want to tell everybody we appreciate those who super chat. All right, Brother Anthony, I got to get you from last night super chatting. We really appreciate that. And there's so many others, you know, that, you know, I'm gonna come back with a whole list tomorrow and go through everybody's name because we just really appreciate y'all. All right. We love y'all and we out, y'all. Peace.